Have you ever heard someone say, if you can teach a thing, then you know that you know a thing? Well, in this video, I'm going to share with you a project called the Manual that will allow your students to teach a thing and thereby show that they know a thing. Hi, I am Kellie Alston, your e-learning strategist who is passionate about helping you master the art of teaching online. And before we get into the manual, I want you to know that I've created a course called the FACE Method. Facilitate, assist, communicate, and empower. And I believe those to be the 4 keys to mastering the art of teaching college courses online. I would love to share this mini course with you. All you have to do is head over to kellyaustin.com, click the Enroll Here button, and get started. All right, let's learn about the manual. This is my second offering in this series, Group Projects Made Easy. The first offering was Who Makes the Team? And that project was for developing a deeper understanding of a concept, which is the first reason I believe you might want to include a group project in your course. But the manual's purpose is to provide practical application of a skill, which is the second reason why I think you might want to incorporate a project in your course. Now, when I'm talking about a manual, I'm simply talking about a book of instructions, especially for an operating machine or for learning a subject. You might even call it a handbook, or you might choose to call it an ebook in your course, but nevertheless, it is a book of instructions. Now, let's determine whether the manual is right for your course. First, I want you to examine your student learning outcomes. You always want to make sure that every single thing in your course that you have students do is for the purpose of having them to master those learning outcomes. Then I want you to list the skills, the concepts, the procedures that your students need to learn to achieve competency. Next, consider these 3 questions. Who would be the target audience for this manual? Who would they be teaching? How would the manual benefit that audience? And would this manual be useful for your students in the marketplace? I believe that every learning experience, whether it's a group activity, whether it's a group project, or whether it's an independent assignment, I believe that your students should be able to take away something from that they can use far beyond the walls of your virtual classroom. So think about that. Then I want you to brainstorm. What types of manuals could students create in your course? What types of manuals would be relevant to the content that you would have them to talk about in your course? Lastly, I want you to write the objectives for this particular group project, the manual. All right, now, let's just pretend you said, yay, hooray, this will be good. I've done all of those things, Kellie, and I want to do this in my class. Okay, all right, so here's the process. Your students are going to sign up for chapters or sections on the group wiki. So you are going to create a wiki for each group whereby they may sign up for the chapters and or the sections of the group wiki. Now, first of all, they have to be in a group. So how are they going to do that? If you're teaching an asynchronous course where there's no scheduled meeting time, you're going to want to gather data from your students about what days and times are convenient for them. Based on the information that you gather, you're going to want to set up groups and group pages, and your students can manually enroll themselves in the group that's convenient for them, because they are going to have to meet live with this group. All right, then you're going to have them to sign up for the chapters for the manual on a group wiki. Next, your students are going to commence to writing. They're going to write the content for each page of the chapter that they signed up for. Then they're going to look for illustrations, look for photos, look for images online using royalty-free. Make sure they're using royalty-free images to illustrate what they are teaching. Think about when you get a manual for, let's say, this chair that I ordered online that I'm sitting in. Well, that manual has pictures of all of the tools that you're going to need. It shows you step by step as you're putting the chair together how it should look at this phase, how it should look at that phase. Well, you want the same thing for this particular manual. Have your students to also select images that illustrate what they're teaching. They're going to then combine all the chapters together to create the manual, and finally, they're going to submit it to a designated area. I choose the discussion board in my course as well as the grade center. They submit this assignment independently as well, and we'll talk about that in a moment. All right, so let's look at the phases of this project. Now, this project can take 2 weeks or it can take 3 weeks. If you're teaching a semester, I would encourage you to extend it to 3 weeks. But if you're doing a mini session like 8 weeks, or you're doing a summer school session, which may be 4 or 5 weeks, then they can get it done in 2 weeks because they already know that they're doing things at an accelerated pace in those shorter courses. Now, you're going to have a deadline phase and a live session phase, and a deadline phase and a live session phase. So let's talk about this. The first phase, deadline 1, your students are, of course, going to have to either sign up for a group or already know they're in a group, check out their group's page, see who's in their group, do all of that by a certain date. Then they're going to want to sign up for their chapters on the group wiki, as I mentioned before, and they're going to have a deadline for having half of the chapter done with references, if references are needed, before the first session. So you always want your deadlines to be before they meet live. Why is that? Because if for any reason someone cannot be there, their work that they have completed is on the group wiki or on the group's file exchange or wherever you have them to submit it. Don't do the wiki for this. I do the file exchange. But there's going to be in a designated place before the live session. So if they can't be there, the show still goes on. The group can pull up their information and they can examine it and give their feedback whether the person's there or not. Now, we want everyone to be there, but these are just tips that I'm giving you that make the group project process run smoothly. Now, when they meet in their live session, okay, they're going to look at every person's contribution so far. So each person is going to share their desktop, pull up their half of the chapter, share their illustrations that they've chosen, or the images that they've chosen. They're going to read the content, and the students are going to give them feedback. Perhaps they forgot to cite where they got that information. Perhaps they use clip art and not real images, and the group doesn't like that, think it looks professional. Whatever their feedback is, they're going to give it to them then. All right, the next set of deadlines are they need to have the second half of the chapter done with illustrations, with images, and their reference pages need to be done and submitted to the publisher. So if this is a manual where they are citing articles or websites, blogs, any kind of references, they want to have all those references done on a reference page, and they want to submit that to the publisher. Now, there's 2 options here. You can have your students to create a manual where the references are after each chapter for that particular chapter, or you can just have them have the final pages be the reference pages as they would in any professional document. Okay, some of our textbooks do that where the references are after each chapter, so you can have them to do that. All right, next, they're going to have a live session where they look over the second half of the chapters that everyone has done. Okay, if this is a summer session or a mini session, this is going to be their last time meeting, so they're going to be looking at the entire document. Okay, they're going to have to take time to look at the whole manual to see what they feel about how things are flowing and if it's professional or not. They're going to be using the rubric that you have created as their guide to determine whether this is a high quality assignment. Okay, but let's just pretend that you are incorporating this in a semester course. Okay, so then they're going to have another deadline, and that is for the whole manual to be put together by the publisher. Anybody who left off something, excuse me, anybody who needed to make any changes, anybody who had anything that they needed to do to perfect their chapter is going to want to have all that submitted to the publisher. And the publisher is going to have the rough draft uploaded to the file exchange for everyone to see. Okay? They're going to meet for the third time and look at the entire document. So for the short session, they're doing that here. For the semester, they're doing that here. And I suggest you do 3 weeks because when people take semester courses, they're normally taking 3 or 4 courses at a time. Whereas during mini sessions, they're usually not taking more than 2. So, and they know that they're accelerated. So when you have a semester session, really, give them 3 weeks to get this done. All right, now the final phase is that they're going to set a deadline for the publisher to submit the final draft to the group. This is important because everyone in the group needs to look at this final draft or forever hold their peace. Okay, they need to say whatever they need to say about it, or it is what it is. Okay, then the publisher is going to upload it to the designated area that you've set, minus the discussion board, by the due date. Also, students are going to submit it independently in the grades if it were an independent assignment. Why do I do that? Because, let me tell you, years ago, I've had times where a group project was submitted and a student would be like, no, I sent them these revisions and I told them I wanted them to change this and they didn't do it. This is not the final draft that I approve of, because they may not have liked the grade that they received. If that grade was unfavorable, you may hear from some people who said, no, this is not what I approved of. So I let them know from the very beginning, when this assignment is due, when the final draft is uploaded, and you have your last time to say what you have to say, that's it. So when the due date comes, you need to submit it, and that's your way of saying, yes, I approve of this message. I approve of this product, and I will take whatever grade that we get. All right, let's talk about your responsibility. I want you to create a training module. Now, I have a video called How to Prepare College Students for Group Work Online. Make sure you go watch that. I explain to you the importance of the training module and what to include in it. Next, you're going to set up those groups. This is your responsibility. So either your groups meet during a designated time like my synchronous courses do, and we thereby have our group sessions then, or you're going to create those different times. So you might have a Tuesday group meeting at 6 p.m. or a Wednesday group meeting at 12 noon or a Thursday group meeting at 3 o'clock. You're going to gather that data from your students to see what's convenient, and you're going to set those groups up. Okay. All right. Next, what I want you to do is to make sure your presence is felt throughout this group project. So the reporter is going to submit minutes to you. And if you click the link above, you can watch, well, it's a card, you can watch the video all about the reporter. So the reporter is going to submit minutes to you every time they have a live session. And the reporter is going to share with you any issues, any concerns, anybody that didn't show up, anybody that's not submitting their work. And so you're going to respond to those emails so the reporter can report back to the group what you had to say. And you're also going to stay abreast of what's going on with that group. And when people know that, it alleviates a lot of the problems that we often have in higher education when people work in groups. All right, next, I want you to address issues and concerns. Number 1, attend the live sessions. Now, for me, when my classes meet synchronously, I'm already scheduled to be there during that 2-hour block of time. So I have all the groups up on my computer, and I go in this group and I go in that group. Okay. But when I do it for an asynchronous course, they have different times. I still attend the group session. I make sure I'm there about 10 minutes before the session starts, and they know, our professor's going to be here, our instructor's going to be here, then we need to be on point. Okay, and so that also helps to alleviate a lot of problems because they know that you are going to be there. Now, with an asynchronous course, whether you stay there the whole time or not, that's based on your schedule, but you definitely need to show up, be there in the beginning so everybody knows, let's be decent and in order, and stay as long as you can. Also, you want to contact students and address any issues so that you can make the decisions that are best for all. For example, this summer I had a student who did not sign up on the group wiki for the chapter that she wanted to do, and I emailed her twice and she still didn't do it. So I had to let her know that you are no longer a part of the group. You will need to complete this manual as an independent assignment. So you have to have some consequences because this is actually a lot of work to do by yourself. So if you make it clear that you have high standards, your students will meet you there, and those who don't can do it on their own. All right, let me give you a little course example. All right, so in a course that I teach that's all about infant and toddler program development, the curriculum for infant and toddler classrooms, my students create a developmentally appropriate activities manual for parents. And the task is that they are going to create a manual of activities that parents can do with their infants and toddlers to enhance their development in the following domains. So the first domain is the cognitive, the gross motor, fine motor, communication, and social emotional. These serve as the 5 chapters of their manual. All right, so then they also have, okay, 1 activity per age group in the chapters. So let's say I volunteer to do the cognitive domain. I have to provide an activity for parents that tells them how they can cultivate or enhance the cognitive domain in their little babies 0 to 4 months, 4 to 8 months, 8 to 12 months, so forth and so on, from 0 to 36 months. So the manual looks like this. It'll say cognitive domain. They have a little, divider page, and then they have birth to 4 months. There's an image, and then there's the instructions. To develop the cognitive domain in your 0 to 4 month old, do thus and thus and so. It's going to tell them what equipment they need or what they need to do, or if they need to cuddle their baby, if they're reading to their baby, or whatever they're going to be doing. They're going to tell them exactly what to do. They're going to instruct them on what to do. So there are 7 activities per domain. Now I want to bring this up. The reason you have your wiki and you have your chapters but also have sections if necessary is because let's just say this group only has 4 students in it. Well, there's 5 chapters. So instead of saying, okay, there's 4 of us, one person's going to have to do 2 chapters, that wouldn't be fair. So what I do is I include a section for each one of these age groups under each domain. So it will look like this. There's the cognitive domain, and then I have birth to 4 months, 4 to 8, all the age groups going down, and then the domains going down, right? The domains at the top, actually. And then the students sign up. They put their name in the square. So I would say, Kellie Alston, Kellie Alston, Kellie Alston, Kellie Alston, Kellie. Even though I know I'm the cognitive domain person, it's the visual effect so they can see, okay, Kellie's covering all of this. Now, when they get to chapter 5 or whichever domain somebody didn't volunteer for, they can then say, okay, I'll take birth to 8 months. And so I put Kellie Alston here. Susie May might say, I'll take 8 to 18 months and put her name there. So that 5th chapter can be divided equitably amongst the 4 people. Okay, instead of one person just having to take the chapters. So think about that. If you have like subheadings within your chapters, you're going to want to put those on the group wiki so that they can visually see that they're doing all those sections. And if there's an extra section, then they could then, sign up for that. I hope that made sense. All right, so these are additional details. If the students are citing anyone, they're going to have references in text and a final page, which we talked about. You can either do it right after each chapter or at the end of the manual. They're also going to want to have beautiful images if and that's what I would suggest, but that's what they had to do for this particular manual. And it just makes it, more appealing when you see real people like this instead of clip art. Okay? I also let them know in the instructions that it needs to be reader friendly. What do I mean by reader friendly? You should be talking to the parents, not about the parents. If you read something that's supposed to be written to you and it sounds like they're writing about you, parents should do this. If parents should do that, it doesn't go over well. So sometimes I have to go in the live session and say, oops, let's reword that so that we're talking to the parents and it's a welcoming, warm tone, something that they would actually want to read. All right, so let's make sure that this project fits within the 6 elements of group projects that I say are necessary to make things run smoothly. All right, so how do they have choice? They got to choose what chapter that they wanted to write about, or if you allow them to choose what group they want to be a part of, that's another way they get choice. They have detailed instructions, and again, they have a rubric that they can use during their live session to determine whether they have a high quality product. They have those weekly live sessions. Okay, I explained to you in my group activity series why our weekly live sessions are so important, and they cut out all of the drama that's sometimes associated with group projects. They have group roles. You're going to know these by the backwards and forwards by the time you finish watching these videos. What are those group roles? The group leader, the timekeeper, the reporter, the publisher, and the reflector. Their project group roles are simply this. Everyone's a co-author, everyone's an editor, and everyone's an illustrator. All right, then we are going to have planning sheets for this assignment because I gave you those very specific things that need to be due, and they're going to come up with their deadlines for those things to be due. Now, remember I told you in the last video, make sure that students understand they don't have to sit there during the first session and come up with all their deadlines. They can actually wait until their next live session because sometimes, depending now if they're in the summer session, they may want to do that because they're only going to have 2 sessions. But if they're doing it during the semester, you may want them to kind of meet and then say, okay, what do we want to do? What day do we want to have such and such due? They already know for this particular project what's supposed to be due. Unlike some other projects that I'll be sharing with you and like who makes the team, this one is more, structured where they know what they have to do, but they get to decide, do we want to have that due on Wednesday? Do we want to have that due on, whatever date they choose that's before their live session. You want to make sure that they do that and that they do not create these grandiose plans that make them feel overwhelmed. And then when they meet, so-and-so hasn't done what he or she was supposed to do, this person has done what they're supposed to do, and then everybody's, there's a negative vibe. So it's okay for them to set those dates and deadlines when they meet live and move along in that fashion. So you have made it to the end. If you are still here, I appreciate you. That means that you probably want to subscribe because I'm going to be sharing with you more and more instructional strategies, instructional approaches, and just wisdom, things that I've learned from the past 16 years of teaching and designing courses online. Don't forget to hit that notification bell, click all so that you will be made privy when my video is available. And also, click that thumbs up, leave a comment. I love to hear from you, and share this video with a colleague who already incorporates group projects and may be looking for new ideas or who's thinking about doing group projects in their online courses. Until the next time we meet, I would like to say, continue to create dynamic learning communities online. Bye-bye.